influence them, and organize action. This is people's power. Now,
But this is very difficult. Almost impossible, right?
this has profound implications for leaders of all kinds. But it also has implications for us, just as community members. We have to recognize that we have this power as well, not just during elections, but in between them as well. We have the power to self-organize. We have the power to stand up. Right now, we could all go outside and protest on anything that we wanted. That's what freedom of assembly allows us to do. That's what freedom of speech allows us to do. We can do that. I have a friend of mine, Bridget, from New Zealand. She said to me, Jesse, if we want to discuss an issue, we can call a town hall meeting ourselves. That's people's power. You can have 25 of your friends give public notice, the mayor's required to attend. That's amazing. But so that requires an attitude of experimentation, right? It requires a willingness to participate in these experiments, not just as community members, but as leaders as well.
So if you just listen to this video at the first time, instead of you have a first video without, maybe you understand, okay, we should do kind of action we should take for the American society, right? So you already have the first video, oh no, he's talking about this is wrong. Why wrong? Okay, just how he tried to communicate with a Congress member or president or president advisor. Ordinary people cannot negotiate with those people. It's impossible. Right? You understand, right?
And so this is crucial to being able to understand that. Now, of course, leaders and organizations need the infrastructure to support this type of people's power, this type of self-organizing. And at Powerline, we've been working the last couple of years to understand exactly what that infrastructure is and working to build it and deliver it as well. And we've come across 3 critical rules that we think are important to any community that's looking to build people's power. The first is that any infrastructure must support a broad spectrum of engagement. Now, what do I mean by this? Traditionally, we've had transactional engagement. Maybe you pay dues once a year, you get a newsletter, pay a fundraiser, vote in an election once every couple of years. That's very transactional. A broad spectrum of engagement produces additional involvement opportunities. This may be an opportunity to participate in a space of dialogue. It may be an opportunity to be part of a shared decision-making process.
Well, do you understand what he's talking about? So, do you understand? He said dialogue. Well, he said shared decision-making process.
Shared decision. I understand what that means.
Oh, do you understand what this means?
Shared decision-making process.
Okay.
This is a broad
You understand? This is very important.
spectrum of engagement. Now, in this broad spectrum of engagement, rule 2 would be that this engagement supports the concept of leadership. Not just mayors and presidents of unions and directors of organizations, but also organic leadership. And a good way to think about this is with an open feedback loop. Open not in the sense that it's open-ended, but open that anyone can participate in a feedback loop and anyone can create it. Okay, so that broad spectrum of engagement should support.
For example, in Japan, I'm going to be the member of advisors group, consortium, or opinion open forum, something that every month I'm going to join, attend this kind of meeting. I'm a member of this advisors group. What he's talking about.
These open feedback loops to support the concept of leadership. The third rule is to make sure that we avoid the illusion.
So he's liberal. He's liberal. Very liberal.
Of course, but
little unrealistic.
yeah, but his opinion does not create true democracy
No.
in this country.
His expression reminds me of a French Revolution. Reminds me of a French Revolution.
What is it? French Revolution. Yes, I told you, not French Revolution, I told you that same as South Africa Revolution.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Of democracy, and this is important. It's very easy to be tricked as either leaders or community members into participating in some sort of PR check-the-box engagement activity. Even right now, you may be familiar. Democrats.org send out a petition to increase the minimum wage. Republicans send out a petition to decrease taxes. You go to sign that petition. Do you realize that you're actually signing an opt-in form of advertising? You're adding yourself to a mailing list that's going to be used to fundraise. It's not a petition that's being delivered. So that's an illusion of democracy. And so we need to be very careful that we sustain true, honest, very authentic engagement in order to make sure that we don't lose that trust. Because without the trust, the engagement will decrease.
Right.
With these three rules, the infrastructure supports the engagement between elections. Now, ultimately, we have to remember that the currency of change is social pressure. Not votes, not dollars. Social pressure. And we must remember that the struggle for democracy never ends. As such, we must make a commitment ourselves to being involved in the world beyond work, family, and friends if we are to make the world a better place and avoid a Mad Max future. Now, of course, there's going to be voices that say, it's not worth it. It's not worth my time. It's too stressful. They'll never change. We must ignore those voices. We must look past those voices and find the voice that says, I need to be engaged. I need to take responsibility to make the world a better place for myself, for my children, for my family, for my community. I need to find that voice. Now, there will be those who call you a dreamer. But as John Lennon would say, you're not the only one. Just imagine the possibilities. Imagine the possibilities for your organization, for your school, for your workplace, for your family, for your world, for our world. You can do this. We can do this. So how will you define democracy? It's what happens in between elections. It's going to take the right infrastructure, it's going to take the right leadership, it's going to take the right commitment to engagement.
What he's talking about, very true. So this mother with little child, and we're going to join the local community to make activity for the influence to the government. This is the way he's talking about, okay?
But when we do this, we will claim our people's power, and we will change the world for the world we want and for the world we need. And that's an idea worth spreading. Thank you very much.
So, okay, don't misunderstand. And our men don't take kind of action what he proposed. We need to think an approach is completely different. Okay, first of all, we need to change the style of regime structure. Okay, schema, and need to control the limit for fundraising money, and also how to avoid gerrymandering. Sort of thing we need to take action against government. Otherwise, this is a moral issue. Moral issues. They cannot change the system, and also they need to reconsider for the election system, right? So things. So if you don't listen to the first video, maybe you listen to this video. Okay, we need to agree with him. You misunderstand what is democracy, right? Okay, this is a second video. I want to give you the mind about what we're going to do. Then moving to the definition of democracy. Okay, now you can understand that the democracy is a characteristic I'm going to explain you. By definition, democracy is a system of government by the whole population or all the eligible members of a state, typically through elected representatives. Democratic system of government gives citizens a say in choosing the politician, and in some cases, even the policies that will shape their everyday lives. It has Greek origin in the word demos, the people, and kratos, the power. Okay? It means people power. there are 4 key elements in calling a system of government a democracy. 4 elements. First, a political system for choosing and replacing the government through free and fair elections. Number 2, the active participation of the people as citizens in politics and civic life. Okay. Number 3, protection of human rights of all citizens. Number 4, a rule of law in which the laws and the procedures apply equally to all citizens. 4 elements. Okay. Then with democracy, ideally, one would get 8 positive results. Number 1, safeguard the interests of the people. Number 2, based on the principle of equality. Number 3, stability and responsibility in administration. Number 4, political education to the people. Number 5, little chance of revolution. Number 6, stable government. Number 7, helps in making people good citizens. Number 8, based on public opinion. Okay, this is the characteristics, right? Now we're going to get into the what is democracy video.
Just the number 5, little chance revolution. You're saying that basically a little chance means less likely, correct?
No chance.
No chance. No chance.
No chance.
Okay.
Okay, this is what is democracy. This is very heavy one.
I want to have.
The control of an organization
But I don't show you
by
everything.
the
But
majority of its members.
this is very good one.
The modern word is said to have originated during the late 1500s, derived from the ancient Greek phrase Democratia, from demos, meaning the people, and kratia, or kratos, meaning power or rule. A democratic government, therefore, is a system of government by the whole population or all the eligible members of a state, typically through elected representatives. And it is by no means restricted to the human definition. Democratic procedures exist within the animal kingdom too. Some experts even musing that democracy is not something that humanity invented at all. Studies have shown that whenever pigeons fly in large flocks, or when types of red deer stand up in turn and point in a certain direction, they are expressing their preference as part of a group. It can be demonstrated that in many social species, no dominant individual decides for the group as a whole. Of course, these processes are largely unconscious, and no cognitive reasoning takes place in any human sense. But nevertheless, decisions are made on a majority preference, fitting with what most individuals in the group want. For you and me, this is...
Later part, they are going to show several animals very similar to the activity of democracy. But just have a look. This is I show you the this kind of government democracy is a political system for choosing, replacing the government through the free and fair election. And second, the active participation of the people. Right? 3 is protection of the human rights. 4 is rule of law, in which law and procedures apply equal to all citizens. So you're going to change the world very similar to like a movement of the kind of animals. What he said. Okay?
System of government means, theoretically, we are all offered the equal opportunity to have an impact on national and international politics, whether through voting, contributing to the social movements in the media, or through working for the government directly. To most, these mechanisms, along with the rule of law, are viewed as the liberating forces that protect the majority from tyranny, whilst providing the greatest amount of good for the most possible people. To others, it is seen as a farce or just another ambiguous system of rule through which the individual has little or no significant impact on the greater scheme of things, unless otherwise part of a tight cluster of elites. Many choose not to participate at all. But how did democracy come about? What does it mean to people worldwide? Is there only one type of democracy? And taking into account its underlying principle, empowerment of the people, can it really be said that this principle is being lived up to? During the course of this documentary, we aim to answer these fundamental questions and more, as we explore the many faces of democracy. As far as we know, early examples of central organization on any large scale first began emerging in Africa and the Middle East around 7,000 years ago. We also find early evidence of civilization in South and Central America dating back to 9000 BC. Much of what we
Maybe you didn't know that 9000 BC, before Christ.
know about their existence is derived from magnificent ancient structures, carvings and scriptures. They suggest that they were able to acquire, maintain and control great amounts of human capital and natural resources, which demonstrates early central organization, but democracy had yet to be developed. The first ancient republics we know of sprang up between 2000 and 500 years BC in Syria, India and Greece respectively.
Usually say that the principles of that the ideas, of course, of Greece, people thousands of years ago.
Okay, this is I'm going to move into this.
And then decision taking on the general will of the people, which will then
$5.5 million. The complaint alleges they used the tax dollars collected from the hard-working citizens of Bell as their own piggy bank, which they then looted at will.
Citizens are bound by laws to which they have agreed upon as being part of that society, and likewise, government officials are bound to the same laws and legal mechanisms, as well as being restricted to a certain degree by constitution.
This constitution was very important because it means that power is being checked and controlled by law and by, not only by law in the sense of hard law, but also by social convention.
It is understood that human society should not be based on a structure of cruelty and oppression that grants everything to an elite few and allows for the unfair ruling of what's known as the little guy. Democracy allows people to break free from the cold natural order of things and justifiably claim a right to life granted to them by being an inherently equal member of a society which protects people from harm and limits the powers of those with monopolies of force and decision-making by making them accountable to the people. Elections offer a choice of candidates with differing ideas, views and perspectives for public consideration, usually in a two- or multi-party system. Non-democratic leaders, however, assume the role of supreme leaders in all fields, meaning whether good or bad, their engagement whilst in power has massive impacts on the general population. In democracies, elected leaders are restricted to a limited term in office and may only be elected for a restricted number of terms. By contrast, authoritarian leaders keep a stronghold within the government for as long as they can. In order to maintain control, these leaders may resort to information restriction, the threat of force, extermination or forced detention to make sure the true nature of their involvement does not provoke wide-scale civil unrest. Freedom of speech and freedom to hold an opinion are largely prohibited, so protests within these systems are usually met with brutal resistance. Historically, the restricted nature of these forms of rule have had dire consequences, both for the people of the state and for the ruling elite themselves. Leaders strive for a good.
Okay, just the first two videos I should explain what is democracy, what kind of pitfall of democracy. And the second video is, okay, if you have looked at video, that is not true, now you understand, okay? This video is I'm going to explain for the, what is democracy. Now I'm going to show you the core of information, free speech, free presentation, but this is the problem. I'm going to show you later. Free information, free speech. It's okay. What is democracy? Okay, free speech is also good and bad.
Freedom of speech.
Yes. This one is. Oh, this one is something.
However, are described as having limited political participation.
Okay, open elections, having limited political participation, freedom of speech, what you said.
tightly controlled media, and although government officials appear to operate under the scrutiny of the people, they are in fact above the law and control most, if not all, of the election processes. Political discussion in many democratic societies today involves the domination of one party over the rest. This mainly involves the undermining of opponents' principles, plans for policy, and even their individual
Okay, I skip for 20 minutes. Now here, this is freedom speech problem.
Was it really a victory for good government, Mr. Brown? Or was it a victory for propaganda? That's why you ask it.
Very
Well,
good,
we did study
very good
citizenship
video.
in school. In a few years, I'll start voting. I've been following the campaign. So much was said on both sides. I'm confused. How can you know what to believe when there's so much propaganda? Perhaps I can
Okay,
help
he
you.
is asking him for the propaganda. The propaganda is prevailing even in Western world, not only China, not Russia.
World
Everybody.
today. Oh yes.
Trump criticized media. This is propaganda. Okay? And they are many media manipulating information. What he's pointing out. So freedom speech, freedom information, this is okay for all of us? No, Trump is criticizing just this point. He's right. Okay?
He's criticizing freedom of speech.
No, he's criticizing media.
Media.
American CNN,
Mm,
ABC,
mm, mm, mm,
every
mm.
media.
Yes.
Because this is he said this is American propaganda. This is American story.
It might also be called a victory for propaganda. But that would have been equally true if our opponent had won. But that's what I mean. Everybody uses propaganda.
Opponent had won. He's talking about.
Right.
I don't know. This is he just pick up old one or not, but obviously he considered for Hillary. Hillary.
Hillary.
Yeah, Hillary and Trump, and he's just keeping it head. Just he's talking about. He said opponent, right? Opponent, right?
Yes.
This is Hillary. Oh,
Political powers will also need, you could say, free press
see, he's Holland guy.
on the local level. But what you see at the moment is that there are almost
I
no
don't
local
know.
newspapers anymore in the Netherlands.
I've been following the campaign. So much was said on both sides. I'm confused. How can you know what
Yeah.
to believe when there's so much propaganda?
Next.
Perhaps I can help you, Chuck. It might also be called a victory for propaganda. But that would have been equally true if our opponent had won.
Yeah,
But that's what I
yeah.
mean. Everybody uses propaganda. Oh, no, not everybody, Chuck. I've been studying it for some years. Propaganda made this picture. Propaganda skillfully employed to turn millions of men to a cruel hatred of their fellow men. On the other hand, propaganda often persuades us to help our fellow men. The products of our factories are also known around the world through propaganda in the form of advertising and salesmanship. The study of history reveals a great deal of propaganda that has been used.
Do you understand this mean? This say, okay, beautiful word or some what kind? Exaggerated information? This is propaganda, he said. Right? So just he said the opponent will win, right? For based upon propaganda. Opponent mean Hillary. Right? So exaggerated information, some fake information. This is he's talking about exaggerated information, great deal of propaganda.
To fight wars and win wars. Propaganda can also be used for peace. So you see, Chuck, propaganda is important. Well worth any time you give, isn't it? I see that. But how can you study it? Well, you can begin by investigating the techniques of propaganda. Here, I've listed some of the main ones.
He's going to show technique.
Rendering generalities, transfer, name calling, card stacking, testimonial, plain folks,
He's
and
going to explain
bandwagon.
all of those. But
You'll find these techniques used in many places,
I
in
don't
many
show you
ways,
everything,
for
but
many different purposes.
couple of those.
Your job is to recognize them when you see them. My first job is to understand what they mean. What is a glittering generality? Well, let me see. That headline you were quoting, a victory for good government. Good.
He said glittering
Generality.
generality means just victory for good government. He said good government. What is good? Right? Glittering. 輝く. Glittering. Right? What good means?
Good government is a phrase we use many times during the campaign. We said the mayor stood for good government and promised good government. But it's true, isn't it? What's true? What does good government mean? Is the mayor's idea of good government the same as yours? I see. It's a glittering generality, one of the best.
This is glittering generality. Okay? You understand?
Change has come.
You studied one, right? Glittering generality.
Yes.
Oh, it is glittering generality. It's very important for America. This is
But
very
the
interesting.
choice
Have a look.
is between the right change and the wrong change. The right change, the wrong change. The right change, the right kind of change. Change what must change.
Our world is changing.
I called for the strange change in strategy. That's not change we can believe in.
Values don't change, but times do. That is the change that I'm talking. We can change.
Looking for change, Democrats, we are that change.
This is indeed a change election.
Change is marching on again. That's got to change. Change makers.
Experiencing a lot of change in their lives, and some of these changes change the changes.
Change.
Completely unaware of the change. Climate change.
Change.
That's not change we can believe in. That's not change we can believe in. That's not change we can believe in.
Change again.
That's not change we can believe in.
Good, right?
And that's not change we can believe in.
Party that doesn't just offer change as a slogan, real, meaningful change.
Meaning.
Okay, this is very interesting.
There's
This is
another.
glittering
Yes.
generality.
And why do you suppose our opponents chose that phrase? I guess because everybody likes a real American. Right. And they wanted to transfer that liking for a real American to Mr. Butler. And that's what you mean by the technique of transfer. That's it. Now let's see if you can recognize another technique.
There will not be a magic solution. It will require time, determination, persistence, courage, precisely to win the battle against the nationalists or the extreme populists. I know that populists, they manipulate feeling and anger. They can give a very simple solution. Solution is no. To say no is easy. Say no to Europe is easy. Difficult, and that requires leadership, is to say yes, but to say how we can move forward.
Now what would you call that? That's name-calling, visionary, theorist, dreamer. That's right. And those are very polite names. But now I want you to listen to something else.
Well, this is populist, right? Populist.
Congressman Paul, I've heard you now in many debates talk about bringing our troops home and about the war in Iraq and how it's failed. And I want to tell you that kind of isolationism, sir, is what caused World War II. We allowed allow him his answer, please.
This is another 10 minutes, so I'd like
We
to
allowed Hitler to
stop
come to
here.
power with that kind of attitude of isolationism and peace. And I want to tell you something, sir. I just finished having Thanksgiving with the troops, and their message to you is, the message of these great men and women who are serving over there is, let us win. Let us win.
You recognize the technique? No, I don't. It's a tricky one. Is it true about partly true? That's what we call card stacking.
But you do have to allow Congressman Paul 30 seconds to respond.
Absolutely. The real question you have to ask is why do I get the most money from active duty officers, military personnel? So what John is saying is just totally distorted. He doesn't even understand the difference between non-intervention and isolationism. I'm not an isolationist. I want to trade with people, talk with people, travel, but I don't want to send our troops overseas using force to tell them how to live. We would object to it here, and they're going to object to us over there.
All right, we will. I see. And card stacking is choosing some facts and leaving out others, and arranging them to suit your purpose.
That's the idea. So, and sometimes
So these explain everything.
agenda.
Okay, and just
There's also like
interesting, right?
Cars
Okay,
are-
this is what is democracy, and also I need to summarize the features of democracy. Okay, equality, individual freedom, free election, political participation, majority rule, popular representation. Do you understand this mean?
Popular representation.
Say something.
Like become like Hillary.
No.
No?
Popular representation, everybody involvement. Popular representation, everybody involvement.
I'm sorry, it's a future democracy. Okay.
Okay? Unlimited government,
Yes.
a peaceful change of government, free press, judiciary independence.
Independence, right.
America case is this one very important. Very important. Okay? So this is all are features of democracy.
So judiciary is not in South Korea. Judiciary independence. Not yet.
And okay, this is I'm going to conclude this video, showing this video. And this is Socrates hate democracy. Okay. Oh, so
We're used to thinking very highly of democracy, and by extension, of ancient Athens, the civilization that gave rise to it. The Parthenon has become almost a byword for democratic values, which is why so many leaders of democracies like to be photographed there. It's therefore very striking to discover that one of ancient Greece's greatest achievements, philosophy, was highly suspicious of its other achievement.
Okay, this is a little bit difficult story. Explain. I'm going to explain later. Okay, Socrates, he is actually death sentence. And as you know, this kind of story they are going to explain.
Democracy. The founding father of Greek philosophy, Socrates, is portrayed in the dialogues of Plato as hugely pessimistic about the whole business of democracy. In Book 6 of the Republic, Plato describes Socrates falling
Socrates, he didn't write any book. So Plato wrote books instead of him.
into conversation with a character called Adimantus and trying to get him to see the flaws of democracy by comparing a society
Okay, he just the flaws of democracy.
to a ship. If you were heading out on a journey by sea, asks Socrates, who would you ideally want deciding who was in charge of the vessel? Just anyone, or people educated in the rules and demands of...
So just explaining just normal people, selecting from normal people or selecting from experienced people for the demand for seafaring?
Seafaring. The latter, of course, says Adimantus. So why then, responds Socrates, do we keep thinking that any old person should be fit to judge who should be the ruler of a country? Socrates' point is that voting in an election is a skill, not a random intuition. And like any skill, it needs to be taught systematically.
So he said, why hate democracy? This is non-skilled or non-knowledgeable people elect somebody. This is not nonsense, he said. Right? This is true, okay?
Systematically to people. Letting the citizenry vote without an education is as irresponsible as putting them in charge of a trireme sailing to Samos.
Ship cannot be terrible sailing, right?
So maybe with the Brexit.
Exactly.
Socrates was to have first-hand catastrophic experience of the foolishness of voters.
Exactly what you said. That's one.
In 399 BC, the philosopher was put on trial on trumped-up charges of corrupting the youth of Athens. A jury of 500 Athenians was invited to weigh up the case and decided by a narrow margin that the philosopher was guilty. He was put to death by...
This is both is Socrates is guilty. 52% she should be guilty, right?
hemlock in a process which is, for thinking people, every bit as tragic.
This is poison, just one. Poison.
Tragic as Jesus' condemnation has been for Christians. Crucially, Socrates was not elitist in the normal sense. He didn't believe that a narrow few should only ever vote. He did, however, insist that only those who had thought about issues rationally and deeply should be let near a vote. We have forgotten this distinction between an intellectual democracy and a democracy by birthright. We have given the vote to all without connecting it to wisdom. And Socrates knew exactly where that would lead.